PMS, fibroids, fertility, and menopause are just some of the special health concerns of women that benefit from herbs. In this video, herbalist Carmen Lin discusses how herbs can help women balance their hormones, reduce stress, and increase vitality. Welcome to Richters Seminars. This video presentation is from a series of free educational seminars on herb and garden topics offered each year at Richters.
I'd like to start with talking about hormones. What they are, what they do, and how they affect our cycle and fertility. How to balance hormones with herbs and nutrition. How stress affects our hormones, that's a big one. And how to use adaptogenic herbs to relieve that stress and to help our bodies to deal with the stress. A few PMS symptoms, there's a long list, so we'll touch on a few. And talk about which herbs and foods to relieve. Then we'll go into some urinary tract infections, and I'll tell you a few ways to treat them naturally as opposed to using pharmaceutical antibiotics, which can have their own issues at times. But I'll also talk to you about signs that you can look for to know when is a good time to go to the doctor. We'll talk about uterine fibroids and what herbs and nutrition work in those conditions. And then last but not least, menopause and herbs and nutrition for that stage in our life. I'm certainly not going to include the more serious diseases. For those, I strongly urge you to seek advice from a health practitioner. But what I would like you to take away from this today is, for example, if you have menstrual cramps, rather than habitually reaching for an over-the-counter pain medicine, hopefully this will empower you and give you some ability to put together a remedy and treat yourself, and maybe help out a friend as well. And also how to grow your medicine. We'll talk about that too. And we have some lovely examples here. So what are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers in the body, made by the body, that generally speaking either speed up or slow down processes in the body. So a pretty obvious example would be oxytocin. And during labor, oxytocin is released to contract the muscles of the uterine and to push out the baby, right? The two that we'll talk about today are estrogen and progesterone. But it's also important to talk about the thyroid hormones and cortisol, our stress hormone, because there's such an overlap and they all play a really important role in women's health. Starting with estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone that gives us our womanly curves. Estrogen opposes progesterone. So what I mean by that is, imagine a teeter-totter. You have estrogen on one end and progesterone on the other. And if estrogen is high, which is more common than not, then progesterone is low. So what we want to do is bring them into balance. Estrogen also increases cell growth rates. So in hormone-sensitive cancers like breast cancer, it can actually speed up the growth of cancer. It also initiates weight gain. An excess of estrogen can result in PMS, in fibroids, in irregular periods, and in heavy bleeding. In menopause, it's the decline of estrogen that can cause hot flashes, and I feel like I'm having one now, and headaches. But estrogen isn't all bad. One of the benefits are it can prevent diseases like heart disease, it can prevent osteoporosis, and it can prevent senility. And that's why in menopause, as women, we actually have an increased risk of those illnesses during that time. Estrogen dominance might be a term that you've heard of. It's very common these days, and mostly because of the exposure that we have to pesticides, to hormones in conventionally grown meat, and to, what's the other one? Plastics. Plastics are a big one. So it's actually bringing in xenoestrogens into the body faster than we can excrete them out. And I'll talk about that a little more later on. Progesterone is the other one, and it opposes estrogen again on that teeter-totter. Progesterone is needed to carry a baby to full term. And progesterone actually protects our body against cancer. Very, very interesting. Progesterone deficiency can lead to chronic miscarriages and infertility. And then we have cortisol, our stress hormone. It is vital to our health. We need it, but for the most part, we make too much of it. It is released when we wake up, when we exercise, in acute stress. If a tiger were to walk towards us, our cortisol would shoot up. We want that cortisol so that we can, fight or flight, right? We wouldn't fight the tiger, but we would run. It temporarily increases our energy, but it can also be at the expense of the other hormones and throw things out of balance. In chronic stress, which most of us are experiencing, be it from a stressful job or a job that you hate, maybe from a relationship that you are not wanting to be in, maybe a life that you don't feel fulfilled in, whatever the chronic stress is coming from, the cortisol can have damaging effects on our body. It can cause blood sugar imbalance, weight gain, digestive issues, and because cortisol and epinephrine are made from the same glands as estrogen and progesterone, it can curb their secretion as well. And last but not least, our thyroid hormones. They affect every single cell in our body. Pretty important. They regulate our metabolism, how fast we burn fat. They affect our fertility and our body temperature. An underactive thyroid can prevent a miscarriage, and if a woman gets pregnant, an underactive thyroid can also result in a miscarriage. So very, very important to mention those two as well. How do we balance these hormones? There is a lovely herb called Vitex. Many of you have probably heard about it. Chasteberry is the other name. It can help to balance estrogen and progesterone. It is referred to as a bioidentical progesterone, so it works that way. But the plus of this herb is that it seems no matter what hormone is out of balance, it will put them all into balance. It can be taken as a tincture, which is a quick and easy way to get herbs in. It's not delicious, I will tell you that. And it's a very strong herb, so it can cause nausea in some women. The negative, if you want to call it that, is that it can take up to 3 months to balance a woman's hormone levels. That may seem like a long time, but if a woman has had hormonal imbalance for years, then really that's a drop in the bucket. For women who find it strong or it creates nausea, there is another herb. Bless you. Blue vervain, which vervain is one of my all-time favorite herbs. My company's named after it. That's how much I love it. And it too is a herb that can help to balance the hormones, but in a much gentler way. Vervain has a calming effect as well, so you can sit and enjoy a cup of tea, or you can tincture it as well. I have a blue vervain here. I have a couple of them actually, so I'll pass them around so that you can get to know it. There you go. Verbena hastata is the Latin name. Most of the herbs that I'm going to mention today, you can easily grow in your garden. Vitex, not so much. It grows in the southern states. We don't really have the climate for it, although in here you'd feel like we did. But most of them you can grow. So there's nothing more rewarding than going out to the garden, picking a couple leaves of a herb, making a tea, and sitting there and enjoying it, right? When balancing the hormones, we can't forget to also give the liver some attention. The liver gets really bogged down. It has over 500 functions in the body, And especially in our modern day society, with all of the toxins and such that are circulating through our body, the liver can get sluggish. And if it gets sluggish, then it may not grab excess hormones from the blood and help to excrete them from the body. It's also important for this reason to have enough water and fiber to help excrete toxins and excess hormones from the body. Quite literally, we poop them out. So the liver sends them to the intestines and then out of the body. That's the technical name. A great herb to help cleanse the liver is dandelion root. I don't know anyone who doesn't know dandelion, so I'm sure we don't have a specimen here, but I don't think I have to show you. So dandelion root has a pleasant taste. It can be made into a tea or a tincture. It's better to simmer it to make the tea as opposed to just letting it infuse like you would leaves. But it helps to gently cleanse the liver, and it's also a gentle laxative. So again, helping to excrete the excess hormones out of the body. Another beautiful herb is agrimony. It's a fairly early riser. Mine is a couple inches already, and has lovely yellow flowers on it. And it can be made into a tea. It's a great gentle cleanser on the liver as well. Easily grown here, and easy to. Once you have one little plant, it just keeps spreading, and you've got enough that will last you for the season. Nutrition-wise, as I said, make sure that you drink enough water and get enough fiber in. But there's also some really common foods that can help to excrete the excess estrogen out of the body. Mushrooms are one of them, and it can be any mushroom, including even field or button mushrooms. All berries, whether it's strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, any of them will help to excrete it out. And ground flaxseed is another one, because it contains phytoestrogens, which I'll talk about in a bit. So buying your organic flaxseed whole and grinding them right before you eat them is ideal. Otherwise, it's a volatile oil and it can go rancid quickly, and then it's not good for you. So freshly ground flaxseed. I'm going to dive into stress a little bit here. We're all familiar with stress. That is basically how our world seems to be running toward. I talked to you about cortisol and how it can play an important role, but chronic stress can have negative effects. And I mentioned blood sugar imbalance, weight gain, digestive issues, and hormonal imbalance. I'd like to go into a few of these. Our outside environment is dead important in making sure that we eat organic foods and that we avoid GMOs and avoid plastic bottled water. But just as importantly, we also need to be mindful of our internal environment. Is there anything eating us? Is there a relationship or a family member that's in our life that's causing us stress? Is there a job that we don't like going to, like I mentioned before? Are we being fulfilled? Are we being treated with care and respect? Are we being heard? All of those are crucial to our overall health. So removing the stressor from our life will usually remove the stress from our life, but I'm not suggesting that you quit your job tomorrow morning or that you ditch the husband after this talk. But unless, of course, those things need to be done. But more often than not, we have a pretty good life, but we just perceive that there's stress in it. There might be an old fear or an old pain that gets triggered. And it doesn't mean that the tiger is chasing us, but our body may react as if it is. So when you have a moment alone, have a cup of tea of one of these lovely herbs, sit and think about it, journal, meditate, whatever it is that you do to process things, and ask yourself, how is life going? What is amazing? What makes me cringe? What makes me not want to get up out of bed in the morning? what is serving me, what isn't serving me, and is there anything that I can change that then I can obtain optimal health. Any chronic stress in the body alters our hormones, our immunity, our entire balance. This includes self-talk. The way we talk to ourselves greatly affects health. There's research now showing that if we talk badly to ourselves, maybe it's you're not good enough, or you're never going to be as tall and thin as she is, or you're never going to be as good as that person, or where did that belly fat come from, or whatever it is, that we actually change our stress hormones, and we change the blood flow in our digestive system, which then changes our gut bacteria. And since 80% of our immune system is in the gut, we can actually change the way our body protects us from viruses and bacteria. So our health is not just based on what we eat, what we drink, but also what we think. A negative environment never produces positive results. So that's a first and foremost to look at. Some herbs to relieve stress. There is a lovely group of herbs called adaptogens, and they help the body to deal with stress, whether it's internal or external. One of my absolute favorites is holy basil. I think I have one here. Where did I see? Here we go. Do you want to pass that around? Holy basil, Ocimum sanctum. It makes a delicious cup of tea. It's a combination taste of basil, mint, cloves. It's like you've put together a really great formula, but it's just one herb.
Is that also called tulsi?
Tulsi, yes, same thing. Yep. So it's a standard in India where a cup of holy basil in the morning helps them to get going. A cup in the afternoon helps them increase their concentration and keep them going so they don't have that afternoon lull. And it also, a cup in the evening also helps them to sort of wind down from the day. So you can see that it follows the rhythms of the body and is very supportive. The added bonus to holy basil is that it helps the body get rid of excess estrogen. Holy basil is from India and Southeast Asia, but grows really well here. All you need are a few seeds, and you have a nice crop for the season. It is one of India's most powerful herbs, and it is said to nourish a person's growth to perfect health and promote long life. Who doesn't want that, right? Among one of its many uses in the West is as an antidepressant for stagnant depression, which is a term coined by, I believe, David Winston. It is when a traumatic event happens in someone's life and they just can't get over it, and then their life starts to revolve around that, right? So holy basil is a beautiful herb for that. Another one is ashwagandha. It is what we refer to as a calming adaptogen, so again, helping the body to deal with stress, but in a calming manner. It's also an anti-inflammatory and an antispasmodic, so helping with any painful cramping. It is a calming, nervine, and an astringent, which may reduce heavy bleeding. Ashwagandha also helps to regulate the thyroid and adrenal glands. So as we talked about before, that involves the thyroid hormones and the cortisol. It may stimulate the thyroid, making it a useful herb in hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid, which is most common these days. And it's also a great herb for anxiety and cloudy thinking. It's rich in iron and helps to relieve cramping and pain, as I mentioned. I think I have one here. No. Oh, yes, I do. That's ashwagandha.
Oh.
Puts out beautiful orange-red berries in the fall, and then you dig up the root. The root is the part that you use, and you can either tincture it or make a tea. Let's dive into PMS a little bit. One of the most common complaints is painful cramping, to which we use antispasmodics that relieve the muscle of the uterus and offer relief. Anyone who gets headaches, antispasmodics apply here as well. Ashwagandha, as I mentioned, is a lovely herb for that, and another one is chamomile. Chamomile is so common, everyone knows it, that sometimes it gets overlooked, but it's a great herb in this case. And one of my absolute favorites is motherwort, Leonoris cardiaca. This one here. It's easy to grow, it's a beautiful plant, it attracts the bees. It has a calming effect on the body. It can also help to ease palpitations and anxiety. It's great in menopause for hot flashes. There's an old saying that cracks me up. Drink motherwort tea and live to be a source of continuous astonishment and frustration to waiting heirs. Says a lot about the plant. Another common complaint of PMS is low blood sugar. Does anyone get ravenously hungry right before their period? Or hangry, as I like to call it. There's an explanation for this. Estrogen levels rise just before menstruation, and as they rise, they also pull up the insulin levels, and as we know, insulin is the hormone that lowers blood sugar, right? So that's why we have that low blood sugar, that hypoglycemia right before. Especially for women who love sugar or love refined carbohydrates, it's just going to amplify that effect. Sugar is pro-inflammatory, so it causes inflammation in the body. If there is any cramping in the body and you have sugar, it will make it worse. I've had so many clients that have come through that, okay, I promise I'll get off the sugar, and they do, and they have an easy period, no cramping, and then they sort of fall off the wagon in the next period and they have a bit of sugar and wham, they're back into their cramps again. So there's a direct effect there. Plus, avoiding sugar just does a great service to our body in so many ways. There are a couple of herbs that can help to balance blood sugar levels. So whether you have them a few days prior to the period or whether you have them all the time. Nettle tea is one of my favorites, good old stinging nettle. I bought one tiny little plant from Conrad here several years ago, and I now have nettles everywhere. So all you need is one, you'll have a yield forever. You can give it to everyone you know. Nettles are dark green in color, which tells us that they're high in chlorophyll. And when we see that plants are high in chlorophyll, it means they're also high in magnesium. And magnesium is the general relaxer, so it relaxes smooth muscles. So that would mean that it's great for any sort of cramping, any headache, any sort of tension in the body. Nettles also contain protein. When you drink a nettle tea, it has that sort of meaty, full flavor. That's the protein. So protein, as opposed to carbs, keeps our blood sugar levels even. Another great herb for regulating blood sugar is North American ginseng. Beautiful, beautiful herb. I don't know if I have it up here. If you can get a plant or two and put it into your garden, it's really important. It's an endangered plant because it is so valuable that people have taken too much of it in the wild. Very, very valuable. The root is the medicinal part that you use. I tincture it. It's the easiest way, in my opinion, to take it. And it's excellent at regulating blood sugar levels. I also mentioned holy basil that's been going around. That's a great one for balancing blood sugar levels. And also one that everyone has in their kitchen, cinnamon. Cinnamon is amazing at balancing blood sugar levels. In fact, diabetics use it. Cinnamon also is mildly astringent, so in heavy bleeding, it's good as well. Nutrition-wise, any type of PMS, no matter what it is, can be treated with vitamin B6. B6 helps not only relieve the anxiety, but also the bloating that can come with it. And rather than sort of pick apart all of the B vitamins, B6 is sort of the PMS vitamin, B5 is the stress vitamin, B9 and B12 are used in anemia, So rather than separate them all, just take a B complex. They're all good for you. And they're water soluble, so they're not going to be stored in the body. If you have too much, you'll pee them out. You'll see the fluorescence. As I mentioned, magnesium is a great relaxer, and one of the most fun ways to get that in the body is dark chocolate. Dark chocolate, especially if it's over 75%, is high in magnesium. May as well have a little fun while you're treating something, right? Magnesium is also great for treating constipation, so if that's an issue. Generally speaking, if you take magnesium, you'll be cool and calm and poop like a champ, is how we say it. So you can't go wrong with magnesium. In PMS, especially with bloating and breast swelling, and it tells me that there's too much water in the body, and that we need to lessen the sodium intake, so less salt, less potato chips. And more potassium. Potassium is a natural diuretic. So if you juice vegetables, for example, that's high in potassium. But one of the herbs I've already mentioned is one of the best diuretics, and that's dandelion leaf. So a simple tea, and you've got potassium, natural diuretic, and you get rid of that excess water. Speaking of water, whew. A couple of foods that have similar effect is avocado and banana. Both of them are high in potassium, so having that natural diuretic effect. While we're on vitamins and minerals, the fertility vitamin is vitamin E, and the fertility mineral is zinc. So for anyone who is experiencing infertility, definitely add those to the diet. The interesting thing is that raw oysters, if anyone doesn't like them, they'll cringe, but raw oysters are high in zinc, and they're also an aphrodisiac. So go out for dinner. Urinary tract infections. Very, very common in women from children to menopause. They are very, very common, and I think it's important to talk about them because they're one of the more common reasons why women go to the doctor and get antibiotics. And I won't go into my own personal story about antibiotics, but I know what can happen if they go wrong. And you can get terrible infections. Mine was life-threatening, so I'm certainly not here to scare you out of taking them because they have their place. But I want you to really be cautious about when you use them, and in a UTI, it's a fairly simple thing to treat. So best to treat it at home than to take antibiotics if they're not necessary. The common symptoms of bladder infection or UTI are burning on urination, the urgency to pee, you have to go right now, and then it's just a tiny dribble. There might be some low abdominal pain at times, but not always. First and foremost, vitamin C is a good place to start. We always say to take vitamin C to bowel tolerance. So generally speaking, people can take between 2,000 and 3,000 milligrams a day. You can increase that by 1,000 increments, but it will be to bowel tolerance. So when your body has, I'll get to you in a sec. When your body has enough or has too much, then you'll get diarrhea. So that's your indication that, 4,000 milligrams is too much for me. I'm sticking with 3,000. You had a question?
Sorry, my niece suffers from, she's 4 years old, and suffers from UTI compliant. So she has the same problem. What would you recommend for a child that doesn't have?
I'll get to that, and it'll probably answer your question. So first of all, vitamin C. From there, we also want to, again with the sugar, avoid any and all sugar. Sugar is what the bacteria thrive on, and the more sugar you have, the more they're going to multiply and have a party in there. The other thing to go to is cranberry juice, the unsweetened, not from concentrate, real straight up cranberry juice. Cranberries have what are called proanthocyanidins, which are constituents that. So here we have the bladder wall. It's like glass. It's very, very, very smooth and like glass, and the bacteria have hooks that hook onto the wall of the bladder. When we drink cranberry juice, these proanthocyanidins come in and they inhibit that hooking on of the bladder wall. So instead, we're flushing them out. So they have no chance to hang on. I've also mentioned nettles. Nettles are a great herb for kids. They are an excellent bladder and kidney support. And yarrow, again for kids. Yarrow is an antimicrobial, so it's going to fight the infection and flush those microbes out. It's also a diuretic, so it's going to encourage us to pee more, and we'll flush them out. Another great one is corn silk, the tassel on a corn plant. Be sure it's only organic, because most of our corn, unfortunately, is genetically modified, so we want to avoid that. This corn silk can be made into a tea. It's a soothing diuretic, so again, helping us to pee it out, but very soothing to the bladder wall and to the tissue. It also has vitamin C. And another one is marshmallow root. Beautiful plant to add to your garden. Great, gorgeous purple flowers. And you can dig up you can use the leaf as well, but you can dig up the root, and it'll make your tea slightly thick. It's very mucilaginous, and that will help to coat the wall and relieve that burning and that inflammation. And one more to add is couch grass or dog grass. Who knew, right? It's a weed that everyone tries to pull out. It's a soothing diuretic and antiseptic as well, so flushing out. If the bladder infection hangs out and you just can't seem to get rid of it, or if you start to have low back pain or malaise, which is just that sort of unwell feeling, that's an indication that you should go to the doctor. Because what can happen is the infection can move from the bladder up into the kidney, and once it becomes a kidney infection, it's nothing to ignore. The liver is a regenerative organ. It can heal itself in our body. The kidneys, it can't. So once they're damaged, you can't repair that. So if it goes into a kidney infection, unfortunately, then you need antibiotics. But bladder infection can almost always be cured with the herbs that I mentioned. Going into uterine fibroids, very, very interesting topic. They are the most common reason for hysterectomy, and I believe in the States, I'm not sure here, but it's something like 60% of women around the age of 50 and over have hysterectomy. That's huge. So fibroids are one of the most common reasons for this. If it doesn't cause significant problems, it's best to avoid this step. Here's the reason. Uterine fibroids are estrogen fed, meaning that the estrogen in our bodies feed them. That's how they thrive. That's how they grow. If we have excess estrogen, they're really going to thrive, really going to grow. But once we get to menopause, the estrogen levels decline, and almost always fibroids will shrink and disappear because now there's nothing to feed them, right? They are benign tumors that can grow inside the uterus and distort its shape. They are very rarely malignant. They can cause menstruation to be heavy and painful. So going into the estrogen balance in our body, we talked about balancing hormones, but again, just talking about excess estrogen, avoiding, if you have fibroids, or a way to prevent them, is avoiding conventionally grown meat, first and foremost, that has they're given hormones in their feed, and then that goes into our body. The other thing is avoiding plastics. Avoid plastic drinking water. And please never put food in plastic in the microwave oven. That's a sure way of having the plastics leach into the food and then into your body. So these are called xenoestrogens. I'm sure that you've all heard of xenoestrogens. They've been talked about a lot. I'll try and keep this simple because hormones can be complicated, but they work as receptors. So there's hormone receptors, estrogen receptors in the body in various areas. And the receptors work like a lock and key. So you have a receptor and you have one of your hormones come and fill that spot. Your hormones, your estrogen is mild. It has a subtle effect on the body. But if a xenoestrogen comes along and fills that spot, it has a very aggressive and negative effect on the body. So we want to keep the xenoestrogens out of the body, and we want to keep our estrogens balanced. And we talked about foods on how to get rid of that excess estrogen. Berries, mushrooms, there's also apples, and the freshly ground flax that I talked about. Vitex, we talked about, a bioidentical progesterone, so that's going to help to balance our estrogen levels. Motherwort, a plant that went around, that is an antispasmodic that's going to help to relieve the pain that comes with fibroids. And also black cohosh. I don't know if I have one here. I do, but I've been asked not to. Can you guys see this? Lovely, lovely plant. This is black cohosh. I've been asked not to pass it around, sorry. You can come see it later. Black cohosh is one that you should have in your garden. For years, I fought the big mature trees that are in my backyard and wanted sun so I could grow herbs. And then finally, one day, it dawned on me that I could have a wonderful woodland garden back there. And black cohosh is thriving beautifully. Again, it started with an itty-bitty plant from here and grew into a huge patch. So black cohosh is a great one to grow because it is indigenous here, so it thrives. But also it is one of those that's becoming endangered because it is such a great herb. People are cultivating it too much in the wild. It's a uterine tonic. It's also an anti-inflammatory. And it's mildly sedative, so it's great at helping to relieve any heavy cramping. It's also a source of salicylic acid, which is what aspirin came from. So it has that same sort of anti-inflammatory effect, except it doesn't have the side effect of damaging your mucous membrane in the stomach. Now let's unravel menopause. The true definition of menopause is no period for 1 year. Until that happens, it's not considered menopause. This can happen as early as 40 years and may happen as late as 55 or even later. The common complaints are hot flashes, as we're all experiencing, headaches, frequent UTIs, cold hands and feet, forgetfulness, irritability, and the inability to concentrate. Let's be reminded that, that menopause is not a disease, like some doctors treat it as. It is a natural process that happens in a woman's life. Hot flashes are the most common complaint. This is because the surface blood vessels dilate, increase the body temperature, and we get a flush to the skin. It's usually followed by a chill afterward. Studies have shown that fish oils can help to decrease these hot flashes. Also, endorphins play a role. Endorphins are what we release when we exercise. So, believe it or not, hot flashes can be relieved in exercise. I know that sounds a bit counterproductive, but and also acupuncture, because that raises our endorphin level. There's a supplement called ferulic acid that's in rice bran oil that's getting a lot of attention for treating menopause as well, or hot flashes in menopause. But probably one of the best herbs to use is maca root. You can't grow it here. maybe you could in a greenhouse. It's a plant from Peru. And rather than just working on 1 or 2 menopausal symptoms, it can bring relief to all of them because it increases the body's production of estrogen, but by stimulating all of the glands. So it can actually reduce cortisol, our stress hormone, and help to balance estrogen, and that way we get relief from all of the menopausal symptoms. Here's a diet to improve menopausal symptoms. Increase plant-based foods, especially those in estrogens, while reducing animal-based foods. So phytoestrogens are plant-based substances that can weakly bind to estrogen receptors. As I was telling you before, we want the weaker estrogen as opposed to the xenoestrogen that goes in and tells the body what to do, bosses the body around. So we can find phytoestrogens in foods like freshly ground flaxseed, apples, but also in carrots, fennel, celery, and parsley. Soy is one I think we need to talk about. It's such a controversial subject. It's not my favorite, but I'll give you the information that I have found around it. If you're going to eat soy, it has to be organic. It's one of the 4 main genetically modified crops, so best to avoid that. Also, probably in Japan is the best example of soy, and it's because they eat it in condiment size only. They don't supersize it the way we do. They don't drink soy milk the way we do, which is just processed. So when you go to a Japanese restaurant, you get the miso soup. There's just tiny little bits of tofu in there, right? So condiment size only and in moderate amounts. So I would say no more than once a week, maybe even once every 2 weeks. I really don't recommend that we do a lot of it because it can have adverse effects. In menopause, it is crucial to support the adrenals. The adrenal glands take a big hit, and if you go into menopause and your adrenals are already low, you can have some trouble. So I talked about the B vitamins. If you're on a B complex already, great. Specifically, vitamin B5 is the stress hormone, and it supports the adrenals. So it's very, very important in menopause. Licorice root is a herb that is restorative to the adrenal glands. Just make sure that you don't use it in high blood pressure. It is contraindicated in high blood pressure because it can increase the blood pressure even more. And if that applies to you, then wild yam is another lovely herb for the adrenals and is used in adrenal exhaustion. So I've talked to you about menopause, PMS, fibroids, and UTIs, how to support your body with herbs and nutrition in these conditions. We've talked about the importance of hormone balance and suggestions on how to alter an imbalance. And we talked about stress and the importance of reducing it. I shared with you herbs that you could grow in your garden or on a windowsill that will provide you vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, and medicine. There's something else that I'd like you to remember. Our bodies have an innate ability to heal. They want to heal. They want to be in balance. When we go out of balance, our body shows us how to correct this by presenting symptoms, whether it's back pain or headaches or menstrual cramping or whatever it is. It's our body telling us that we need to shift something in our life. So rather than masking the symptoms, let's look at why those symptoms are happening and provide the necessary nutrients for the body so that it can go back into balance. Also, what you want and what you need matters. If you feel you need to start a day with a walk in the woods, do it. If you feel you need to start your day on a mat doing yoga, do it. Make time for these things. and listen to your body because it will tell you exactly what you need. Don't hold yourself back by comparing yourself to other people. Don't even mind what other people are doing. We're so bombarded by perfect appearing people on Facebook and Instagram. Do your own thing, do what serves you, and the rest will fall into place. Before I open it up for questions, I wanted to share a quote with you. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. Thank you.
At Richters, it's not just a garden, it's a whole new world. For herb plants, seeds, veggies, and more, visit us at richters.com or call 1-800-668-4372.